The early era of Bleach's art style lasted from the start of the manga to somewhere in the middle of Soul Society. This era actually has some changes within its range, but I'll explain them as they come up. Let's start with facial thirds. The lower third is always the shortest. At the start, Ichigo's upper third, his forehead, was the longest, but it eventually became shorter, making the middle third the longest. Rukia has similar measurements. Her upper and middle third are around the same length. Orihime had the same growth as Ichigo. Her upper third started as the longest, but it became smaller, leaving the middle as the longest. Meanwhile, Uryu kept his large forehead throughout the era. The eyes follow the same rules as the middle era, with one main noticeable difference. The eyes droop a lot more. At the start, Ichigo's eye outline droops, meaning that the left and the right aren't parallel. The outsides of the eyes are lower than the insides, resulting in slanted lines for the eyes. Orihime's also do this, but even at the beginning, the eyes don't always droop. It goes back and forth, but towards Soul Society, the droop dies off. Another difference is that the eye outlines were sometimes thin. It's noticeable in some Ichigo and Rukia panels, but the upper line got thicker over time. Now, eye gaps. The gap is at least one eye's width, but it can be a little longer. Orihime specifically has eyes that are taller than they are wide, which results in her having eye gaps that are about 1 1/5 to 1 1/2 wide. If I were to measure using the bottom line of the eye, most of the characters would have a gap of 1.2 as well. The eyebrows are the same as the middle era. The nose is mostly the same, but the method for drawing noses when a character is facing forward hasn't been completely developed yet. I can see him developing it in some of Orihime's panels during Soul Society, but for the most part, the noses kinda just point downwards, making a V shape with a flat bottom. In some panels, Rukia's nose is just 2 carrots, like Naruto. For the lips, the signature upper lip has not established itself yet. The jaws are another signature of this era. They are boxy, angular, and sharp. The lines going from the chin also curve inward. Deeper into the Soul Society, the jaw smooths a little, and the turning point of the jaw slowly raises, making it closer to the middle era. Ichigo's jaw begins to become more rounded, but there are other characters like Renji and Ikaku who keep the same sharp jawline. Women have a more apparent jaw evolution. By the Soul Society, their jaws have completely rounded. Another big difference is that when characters are drawn at a 3/4 angle, their cheek used to be pointy, but in Soul Society, they flatten to a smooth, straight, or slightly curved line. The way the faces are drawn for specific characters change at different rates, which is why I grouped all of this into one era. Orihime's change is the most apparent. Like I said, her eye droop disappears, and her eyeballs become less long and more round. Her face proportions are kinda inconsistent, which may be another reason why she looks very different. Sometimes she has a more moe face, other times she has a longer adult face. Her forehead also shrinks. Her hairstyle changing between arcs might also help in the different look. For Ichigo, his forehead shrinks, his jaw becomes less angular, and the way his eyes are drawn shifts slightly. But then if I look at Rukia, the main difference is that her jaw becomes rounded. Outside of that, her face looks mostly the same in both arcs. Same goes for Uryu and Chad. Their jaws are the only real changes. The hair is the same as in the middle era. The height is also about the same. The average height character is about 8 heads tall. Orihime looks to be about 6 heads tall, which is how tall Rukia was in the middle era. Orihime is only 5 inches taller, so that checks out. It's not like artists precisely measure their characters' heights. The anatomy is mostly the same. They are still extremely skinny, making their bodies look longer. The heads and hands are also slightly bigger. When comparing before and after, the difference in head size is highlighted. The blacks are used in the same way. The line weight and pen pressure are much more noticeable in this era. There's a lot more shading as well. There is hatching and cross hatching, and it looks messier than in the middle era. The cloth folds in this era are pointier compared to the middle era. Overall, the main differences between middle and early are the angular jaws, drooping eyes, bigger foreheads and hands, and more line weight and shading.